Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and all the members of the House for the chance to address you today. First, I want to say that I hope everyone had a blessed holiday season. We're all grateful for the brief respite that we're allowed before the people's work begins. I also want to congratulate all of our new members. You guys are starting the best job that you'll ever have. And the first year of your first term is the most joyous and most invigorating time you'll spend in public service. It only gets harder from here. But make the most of it, and this is very important advice to you. Enjoy the frustrating days along with the good ones. Enjoy the frustrating days. And please accept my personal congratulations, Mr. Speaker, for earning another term as the chief steward of this body. Except for maybe school board or sheriff, being speaker is the toughest job in elected politics. And we know the difficulties that you face are their own reward. But I wish you well as you continue this journey of leadership. Now, I want to look back for just one brief moment. This will be very brief. For most of the past 2 decades, this more or less has been an evenly divided chamber between Democrats and Republicans. But the prevailing winds of national politics, the short-term impacts of newly drawn legislative districts, and the effects, frankly, of big spending and campaigns have changed the margins of this body. And also, frankly, some things that Republicans have executed well and some things that Democrats could have done a little better have affected the House too. But that is the past, and we now owe important obligations to the citizens of this state. Above all, we must make sure that the power of government does not shift far from the center. The majority has duties not to misinterpret the reasons they were elected. And I call upon you to show enlightened restraint in your goals. The people expect it. Likewise, the Democratic caucus will help ensure that collectively we are upholding Hoosier ideals. When you believe you are doing what is best for Indiana, we will help you. When we believe you are misguided or misinformed, we will critique you. When we believe you're leading the state in the wrong direction, we will offer the people alternatives. And in the spirit of these duties, the work of the Democratic caucus begins with me making the following recommendations to this body as we begin this legislative session. And the very first one belongs in a marquee right outside this building. And let it say, it's the middle class's turn. The working men and women of Indiana, the ones who plow our streets, who protect our homes, who work in our factories and small shops, they are the economic engine of this state. They are the reason that lights are on at local businesses. Now, of course, some in Indiana have done very well in recent years. If you sit in a boardroom somewhere, you've seen your corporate taxes halved. Perhaps you don't have to worry quite as much about those pesky employees asking about wages and working conditions. Maybe some got a nice tax cut for a nice home or got to celebrate their inheritance taxes going away. These things no doubt happen to some very good people. Unfortunately, most folks, the middle-class workers, the consumers, and other profit creators haven't done nearly as well. According to the most recent Census Bureau figures, Indiana's median household income lags behind the rest of the nation by over $4,000. In fact, we've been lagging behind the nation for years and making absolutely no progress. And just consider another indicator of the struggles of middle-class Hoosiers. The median value of owner-occupied housing units, and you know median is the middle person in any set of figures. That means half the people are worse. The median value of our owner-occupied housing units is $62,900 lower than the country as a whole. So what is typically a middle-class family's biggest investment, their home, isn't keeping up with the big stock portfolios. Now, if you believe there's no government solution to this problem, and I know probably some in here don't, then we can still take the pressure off the middle class and folks working to get into the middle class. First of all, the days when hardworking people lose their homes and their life savings because of medical bills should end now. Look, we know you don't like the Affordable Care Act, but the law is reality and we will help you make it work. Hundreds of thousands of middle-class workers should not have the emergency room as their only health care option. But more importantly, the rest of middle-class workers cannot afford to keep sending them there. Next, stop putting downward pressure on wages. You already did so-called right-to-work legislation, but similar measures that prevent people from improving each other's lives should stop. The answer to every economic problem cannot be passing laws that hold down wages for middle-class workers. That's the path to having no one left to spend money at the very businesses we try to support. And we live in a dynamic world economy. That means that not only must middle-class workers be able to adapt to new jobs quickly, it means they must garner the skills needed to fill the jobs we expect to be open soon. No one should face decades of debt simply because he or she seeks the skills demanded by employers in the electronic age. We know that this problem cannot be fixed overnight, but at the end of the session, we must know that it will be easier and not harder for people to obtain higher education and seek new skills. Now, the mention of education leads us to the next obvious recommendation. We must fix the Tony Bennett mistakes and reinforce traditional public schools. The people have rendered judgment. They don't want our kids to be experiments or science projects. They want a solid education for their children with safe schools, small class sizes, and a place where struggling students get a little extra help. And they want experienced educators making decisions about our classrooms, not some Washington, D.C. think tank. You've had the chance to gamble with the House education money. Now it's time to live up to our commitments to the overwhelming majority of kids who attend traditional public schools and their parents. Restore the budgeted and promised investments in classrooms throughout Indiana. Embrace the long-standing recognition that a child for whom it is a struggle to even get to school in the morning needs extra help. And bolster investments with taxpayer value, like full-day kindergarten and early childhood learning. These are investments in the next generation that will pay taxpayer dividends for all of us in the long run. And if I may add one somber note, we should not forget about the children who are afraid to go home from fear of being beaten or abused. The Department of Child Services should have all the resources available to protect our children so that we no longer have to read headlines of torture, abuse, and death. Democrats intend to help you lead our shared efforts to protect the smallest and weakest among us. Now, in light of our child protection budget, perhaps it's time to say a word or two about revenue. And let's keep this part simple. No tax giveaways for people who don't need them. Governor-elect Pence campaigned on an individual income tax cut, and I presume he wants to live up to his word. I trust also that you will give the governor-elect's proposal a respectful consideration, but I'll offer some advice as well. If you're going to neglect revenue that could help the middle class, then at least make sure the money goes back to the middle class. Cutting rates on folks earning less than $50,000 or $100,000 is less neglectful of revenue. So if tax cuts are in order, focus them on the workers who create the profits in our state. Otherwise, just simply remember that our middle class is being squeezed everywhere, and the costs of health care, education, and safely getting to work stress all families too. The good news in all of this is that through common sense and good old practical problem solving, we can do good things for Indiana. But that means avoiding those things that are needlessly divisive. And that leads me to my final recommendation. On behalf of my caucus, I am calling for a 2-year moratorium on social issues. And you know what they are. They involve the deeply sensitive matters of who loves who, of human reproduction, and women's health. Our state and nation are deeply divided on such issues, and too often this body has only served to inflame those divisions. People deserve a break from the political exploitation of their fears and emotions as we work to rebuild our economy. For some, such issues are easy. For many people, they are not. I implore that we allow the people the time to form new, prevailing consensuses on social matters before trying to divide our constituents on moral, spiritual, and cultural grounds. Frankly, they've had enough. Well, there you have it, Mr. Speaker. Let now be the middle class's turn. Fix the Bennett mistakes and reinforce our traditional schools, and take a break from the things that divide us. We look forward to your leadership, and we expect that you will receive these considerations with the same respect that we all pay to our institution. We know you'll try your best, and on a regular basis, we will come up to this podium to report on how you're doing. Until then, let's govern Indiana not through ideology, but with the common sense of the hard workers we ought to care about the most. Godspeed to everyone, God bless everyone, and let's get moving.